I love animals, especially the practice of keeping them as pets. But I had a problem. For a while now, I had been wanting a new pet, but something different this time. Something aquatic. So after consulting my intellectual mind, analyzing all the interesting animals that I could keep as a pet, I eventually made my decision. In the wild, seahorses eat small live prey that they can find and suck through their tube mouth. They find a surface to grab on with their curly tails. I pretend to be a leaf or stick swaying in the wave. And naturally, just like anybody else, I wanted one, but not before researching their needs. And although meeting their dietary requirements would be the hardest part, I was up for the challenge. So this is the story of my progressing seahorse tank. So I ended up buying a tank from this guy on OfferUp, and I ended up filling it with water to check for leaks. After waiting a couple days, I had noticed that I had some mosquito larvae. I personally wanted to keep them, but I ultimately decided against it. Let me know if you think I made the right decision. And after clearing out the water, I set it up with the things that it came with, and I then proceeded to slide this feller onto my table to begin the operation. I then proceeded to fill the tank with sand, and then I noticed this little guy attached to the rocks. He's a stomatella snail, and he will lick my tank clean for as long as he lives. So I slid him back into his forever salty home. I then decided, well, if I'm gonna have fish, I'm gonna need some water. So I made some salt water, and as I began to pour it in, this little guy thought he could get away. Well, I don't know about that one, pal. And upon completion of this task, everything looked satisfactory. I was satisfied with what I had so far. The sand, the rock placement, and whatnot. I started noticing these little critters walking around on the rocks. There are also these strange tentacles and sea sponges growing on the rocks as well. So I bought these little hermit crabs. They're blue leg hermit crabs. I gave them an algae wafer to keep them sated. I really did enjoy looking at them. Look at this guy. So I gave them their daily loot drop of shells so they could check out the real estate. And soon enough, algae began to form on the surfaces. Things were looking good so far. However, the nightlife was just as abundant. The hermit crabs began to change their shells. I also saw this little nocturnal plankton. And a sea cucumber began filter feeding on my glass. You having fun, pal? Things were going quite nicely. Coral began to start growing on the rocks, and some small plankton started making little sand houses on the side of my glass. I was trying to keep it an ecosystem, so I need to stock it up with one of the largest foundations of life, which would be these little critters right here. They also sent me a Swedish fish. However, I'm not Swedish nor am I a fish, so I gave it to my mosquito colony. One day I'll make a tank for you guys. I also showed my dog before I added it in the tank. Thought she might find it mildly interesting, but she seemed more interested in licking the salt off of my hands. Which is fine with me. She's quite soft. So I got ready to slide these fellas in. This is a video of me sliding these fellas in. Yippee. Soon enough, they started to cover the entirety of the glass, which I was quite happy about, of course. More and more plankton residents began to move in. I guess the housing is quite affordable here. I would hope so. It's a fish tank. I also got this guy. He's a lawnmower blenny. He started out pretty shy. I'd see him staring at me from one side of the glass, and then he moved to the other when I'd moved to the other side. Over the next few days, he began to get used to my finger up against the glass, but he was still a little shy. So I ended up getting myself some coral. Since I planned to have Seahorse, they were going to want something to put the little fin fingers onto, so I got these Gorgonians. They like them because they're branchy and thin, which is perfect for the tails to hold on to. Look at this little snail. Thought you might find it interesting. So I also got some macroalgae, and when it grows in, it's going to look quite nice. Also another thing for Seahorses to hold on to. Make it look a little bushier, which is what I wanted. With the coral and macroalgae growing, wanted to get some new fish. And seeing just how much live plankton was infesting my tank, it only made sense I'd get some pipefish, but I'll get back to that later. I got this harlequin shrimp. He's an interesting creature. He's got these big fan arms, as you can see. He's going to live his entire life only eating starfish. I fed him a little starfish arm to keep him sated. I also deposited in some pipefish because of my massive array of live plankton. They're related to seahorses. You can see the similarity in their face. Every now and then I'd see them catch a plankton with their mouth. I also got this little guy. He's incredibly busy. Currently he's at work. He's a pearly head jawfish, and he likes to spend most of his time scooping sand into his mouth and spitting it out, creating his own little den. Until he got what he wanted, which is this little den here with a seashell in front as decoration. I guess it kind of looks like a doormat.
I love sand.
That's my jawfish impression. That's what they'd probably say if they could talk. As for the blennies, they would usually pick off rocks, eating whatever algae they can grab. The snails are doing the good job too, but overall, my tank was getting quite nasty. I did end up getting other species of pipefish as well. They would usually hover around, staring at anything that moves as if it was intriguing them. Which maybe it was. Meanwhile, I spotted this prawn having his own little concert, playing the bongos on a seashell. In the meantime, I also got myself this Aptasia eating foulfish. Normally soft corals on their menu, but I got lucky and this one had no interest in my coral. As you can see from here, his unique adaptation is that he looks like a dead leaf. But he wasn't the only one pretending to be a dead leaf. I caught this northern seahorse coiled up against a piece of seagrass. And he wasn't the only one in the tank too. These seahorses are a pair, and they do intend to stay with each other for the rest of their life. At the moment, they're having a little snack, grazing on some brine shrimp. They weren't that great at swimming, so when they would travel in the open water, they looked quite goofy. Their body would go stiff, and their fins would flutter really fast to hold themselves up. Now I'll be honest with you real quick. I had a lot more videos than this, but unfortunately, during the making of this video, I fell into quicksand, and I didn't have the videos saved on my computer. As a result, I lost everything, SD card as well, so I can only really make do with what I've got so far. It's rating time. I'll be honest, definitely not museum quality. I don't really know what to name this tank because, quite frankly, I don't care. It's not really up anymore. All the animals have been moved to another tank. I wanted to give them more space. I felt like it was a bit too small for seahorses. I made a lot of beginner mistakes. Tons of algae growing on the corals all around the tank, as you can see. As a result, not too happy with this. It was my first saltwater tank. The tank's still up, but I'd give it, I guess, 6.3. It's not terrible. And at the moment, the tank I've got right now is currently scrapped as well. Plan on moving it to a different location in my house and using something different with it. And using it again for something else. Your boy's got plans. But yeah, appreciate you watching.